For my gray wash, again, I'll use Empire. And these Empire inks are just so easy to use. You literally just open the cap, squeeze them in there, and you're good to go. What's up, YouTube fam? It's your boy P.Lok back again. So today I wanted to show you guys something a little different, my whole tattoo setup as well as the products that I use to tattoo. So with that being said, let's get started. All right guys, so to start, this is my go-to machine. This is the FK Iron Flux. I like this machine a lot. It's usually my go-to because it's good for lining, shading. It's wireless. You know, you don't have to deal with the cables being over your shoulder, getting dirty while you're tattooing. It's a little pricey. I want to say, I think it was like $1,000 or $1,100, something like that. But honestly, I'd say it's worth the price. So it has different levels of voltage. It starts at 5 and it goes all the way up to 12. I usually like to run it at about 7.5, 8 volts. I feel like that's where it hits the best. And because I don't really do a lot of lines, I usually do shading with the mags. I feel like 7.5 usually hits the best. Up next, my favorite needle brand, Quadron. So I like Quadron a lot. It's my go-to needle. I've used plenty of needles over the past few years, but I feel like Quadron is it just hits so crispy, so smooth. It goes in the skin so easy. And on top of that, they have a 8 bug pin. So 8 bug pin is smoother than the rest of the needles because it's like the thinnest needle you can get. And that's usually my go-to. I use liners, I use shaders, flat mags. Any type of needle you can get from Quadron is honestly the best. I do like the fact that you can put it in any machine and it runs. They're very versatile because there's some needles that you put into certain machines and they don't work as well. But I feel like Quadron, I've tried it with the Sol Nova, the Bishop Wand, you know, the Packer. I currently use the Flux and they just go in super easy. I love them. Favorite gloves, Blackwork. So I've used different gloves. I feel like Blackwork's the best because they have latex, they have nitro. My personal favorite, latex. I haven't had a problem with the skin yet. I know some people say they're allergic to latex, but me personally, you know, knock on wood, I haven't had a problem yet. I don't really have a lot of gloves that you take out the box and they have holes in it like other gloves do. So the overall quality of them is just superior from other gloves. And besides that, their price isn't bad. You know, they're cheaper than most gloves. Right now, each box is going about $20 a box, and these are about $15 if you buy them in bulk. So I recommend them over any glove. If you guys want to try them out, I'll put the link in the description so you can check those out. Sensi wrap. Everybody knows what this is. I usually use this around my machines. I'll put like a foam on top of the machine and then I'll usually wrap it with Sensi wrap. It just gives you a better grip. You know, you're not dealing with the pain that you get from squeezing the machine too hard. And these are pretty common, but I get mine from Blackwork since I get the gloves from there already, so it makes my life easier. So the real reason everyone's here for, the ink. So to start with, I use Dynamic. This is my solid black. I use triple black Dynamic because I feel like it's very thin in comparison to other inks. Like I've used the Intense Super Black, but I feel like Dynamic triple black is thin. It goes in the skin very easy and it heals very dark. It's not too much smudging while you're wiping the tattoo, and you know, besides the fact that it's super dark, that's why I love it. I use this one only for my solid black. I do have my other ink here, which is Empire ink. Empire ink is what I use for my gray wash. I do have the Empire ink set. And I like that one a lot because you don't have to mix, you know, your own drop system. Empire ink, it's very good. It goes in the skin very easy. It's been my favorite ink. I've tried various ink sets and none of them hit like this one. The reason I like it is because the lightest tone, it's actually a very good tone in comparison to other inks like World Famous. I have used World Famous. I feel like it was too dark. And this one, the lightest tone is perfect. It's almost similar to what I was doing when I did my drop set. So this is just easier, you know, I don't have to make my own drop set. It's consistent with every tattoo. So if you're doing a sleeve and it takes you various sessions, you could just pour out these and not have to worry about making the same tone every time the client comes back. Also, if you guys want to see my drop set system with Dynamic ink to do your gray wash series, just comment below and I'll do a separate video to show you guys how I do that. Now moving on, let me show you how I set up my station to tattoo. All right guys, to start with, you always want to make sure you have clean hands. So I washed my hands before I did this, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to grab some hand sanitizer. And the first thing I do is throw a pair of gloves on. You always want to have clean gloves, clean hands. You know, you're touching a lot of things that go into people's skin. So once you put the gloves on, grab your distilled water. I usually wet the whole surface of the station just to make sure that our saran wrap sticks. Rub that around everywhere. Get it nice and wet, if you know what I mean. Once you do that, you want to grab your saran wrap. And this is just the extra layer of precaution right here. A lot of people don't put saran wrap, but me personally, I like to cover everything as much as I can because you do have ink splatter sometimes. Once you have your saran wrap down, that's when you start the whole process. So you grab your dental bib, and you usually put that down wherever you want to start. I like to tape mine down because I don't like it moving all over the place. So I'll put a thin layer of tape on both sides. Once you have that, I'll grab my ink caps. For these, I use the size 15 ink caps, and I'll usually take 5 out. The reason I use 5 is because you want 4 for your gray wash, and then you want 1 for your triple black. And then I'll always take an extra ink cap out for the white because we do white highlights at the end. I'll take my wash bottle bags out. You always want a clean razor for everyone. Make sure you guys always use a clean razor because you're messing with people's skin and you don't want to cross-contaminate. After that, I'll grab a tongue depressor, and I'm pretty simple. I use A&D. I use A&D to put on the skin, but you never want to dip your finger in here because that does cross-contaminate. So I'll grab A&D for the ink caps, and I'll do 1 A&D for my distilled water. So I'll use this to stick the ink caps down. I don't like them jumping all over the place. There's been times when you accidentally hit it with the needle and you'll have it fly all over the place. I'll set mine up in a circular pattern just because it makes my hand easier to reach into every cup while I'm tattooing. After that, I'll make sure I wrap my wash bottles up. You will always want to have these covered also, and at the end you want to clean them with Maticide as well because you can still get micro germs in here. Alright guys, one little trick that I like to tattoo with is Lubriderm. I find it that cleaning the skin with Lubriderm instead of using green soap irritates the skin less and helps clean the skin off easier than just using distilled water. Also, another thing it helps with is not removing the stencil as easy as green soap does. It's a big pro of using Lubriderm. Up next, I have my 2-ounce cup of distilled water. I use this to clean out the ink from the needle so that it doesn't get all bulky and dry. I also use this in between of switching tones in order to keep that same consistency for every tone. Alright guys, next up is the ink. I always start off with dynamic. This is my triple black. This is my solid black. This is what I use for all the blacks and only the blacks. For my gray wash, again, I'll use Empire. And these Empire inks are just so easy to use. You literally just open the cap, squeeze them in there, and you're good to go. It's 4 different tones. They start off with dark, medium, light, and extra light. Remember guys, this is what I was talking about when I said that using Empire, you don't have to worry about a drop system because it already gives you a pre-mixed solution, and you can keep that same consistency for sleeves and bigger projects, especially when you have multiple sessions for one piece. Last but not least, we have our good old white. I like world famous white. This I'll pour out right now just to show you guys, but I usually pour this out at the end just so that it doesn't dry up. But if you do use it at the very beginning, you want to put a drop of distilled water or world famous Keep It Wet on top, just so that it doesn't dry up on you by the time you get to use it. So next, let's get into wrapping our machine. So for the flux, it's a little tricky guys. I usually start with a piece of barrier film, and I'll only wrap the bottom half because there is a twist mechanism on this. If you were to wrap the top, it will not let you twist the needle out while you're tattooing. So to start, I'll cut a piece there, and I'll take this little square off the bottom. So what you want to do is make sure that this piece is flush so that our needle can go straight in there and we don't have any extra barrier film sticking out. And then we're going to wrap this around. Boom, got the bottom part. With this top part, I actually have to use a new piece. There are machines that you can reuse that second piece, like the Sol Nova. But this flux, I'll throw a whole new piece at the top, the second half of the machine, and I'll just do the same thing. All right, so I usually use napkins for this process, but today I'm gonna use a piece of foam. I find it makes your life a little easier, and it also lasts longer than the piece of napkin. I'll usually put this foam at the bottom, and I like this foam a lot. I'm gonna put the link down. It's actually a packaging foam. I'll put the link in the description, but this is just better on your hands. You're not squeezing the machine as hard, and even if you do, it just doesn't hurt your knuckles. It's way better than napkins. I find that it lasts longer and it doesn't lose its form. I'll use our Sensi wrap or bandage wrap. I'll give it a few wraps and we are done. Last but not least, you want to grab your needles. For here, I'm going to use an 11 flat, a 7 flat mag, and then a 5 trusty 5 liner. And that's my setup, guys. All right, so this is my tattoo setup, guys. This is how it's worked for me for, plenty of years. I know there's a bunch of ways to do it, but the point is to try to avoid any cross-contamination, any risk of infection for your clients. With that being said, I hope you guys liked the video. I'm trying to do something different for you guys, be a little more informational so you guys can see the whole process behind the scenes. If there's anything else you want to see, make sure you comment below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.